because when I moved last, I was like, I know I hid this thing in an important place and I didn't lose it, but I haven't found it this whole time.
Nice.
Oh,
If
cool.
you do lose it, you just let me know. We'll mail you another one. But yeah.
I would never tell you. um, no, yeah, I remember this being on a couple of different things, but when I moved, I put it in like with all my important posters, stuff that like is still like not really
You're
out
in
there.
St. George now, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
St.
for the
George.
moment.
That's like southern, like West
The
Utah.
very tip, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It
Is
is the
that connecting
border.
to Nevada at all or California?
It's literally on the other side of the border of Nevada.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Um, okay, so just real fast. It looks like you guys are recording. Cool.
Oh
Very,
yeah,
very
I think I set the meeting
professional.
to auto record.
Cool. No worries. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. So all this. Hi everyone.
Hello.
Oh man, good stuff. For if we're who knows how this will shake out, but if anyone's listening in terms of this part of the edit, here's a little official intro. Guys, thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's Sunday, it's 9 a.m. For me anyway. Pavlov's Bell, one of my favorite bands from Florida. Thank you guys for being here. Really just one of my favorite bands to just chill with and think about the big questions in life with, both in terms of listening to their music, but also Frankie, Tony. I feel like I talk to you guys pretty frequently just about the most random dumb shit. So I consider you guys on that close friends list of like they know what I'm thinking about most of the time.
For
Uh,
sure.
so yeah, it's cool to have that connection with the music as well. Real fast, I want to talk because we have your OG member with you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I want to jump into that, but I also want to jump into the show that Tony, you and Frankie and I met. I think that was a Zeta show for the
Hmm.
Mochima tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was
In Eugene. Yeah.
in Eugene, right? And
Hmm.
I just wanted to make sure that was like that was when we had met, right?
Yes. I don't remember the name of the venue
I
though.
think it was either Lucky's or yeah, I think it was
Oh,
Lucky.
Lucky's. It was Lucky's. It
I
was
think so
100%
too.
Lucky's. Yeah.
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 Okay,
Yeah.
that was a good time.
Um, I think I mean, obviously the Zeta boys already knew you and we're already friends and we're already fans of your band and like so I feel like yeah that if I'm not like totally blowing it, we met at Lucky's and
Yeah, I
we
remember the
hit it off
Zeta
so
guys being
well.
like, "Oh, you should talk to Mike. He likes magic and shit." I'm like, oh.
Oh, shit. Yeah,
And then like
real.
I talked to you and you're like, "Oh, I'm like the only person in the band that doesn't play magic or something like that."
Oh yeah, yeah. That's funny. Hang on one sec.
Because you run a math rock blog. They
Yeah,
like
they have
yeah.
the other end of the nerdiness is taken care of from those guys. I do keep this above my desk. This
Oh shit.
Naga
Oh,
Wizard.
I have that deck. I play that deck. Cadena, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know much about it, but it always reminds me, like, hey, you're not as cool as you think you are. Your bandmates could kick your ass at any moment.
Mm,
It's like a humbling card for me.
Yeah.
it's true.
I
The
have a whole deck
the
for that card. I'll pull it out right now. No,
It's
it's
time.
okay. I won't.
Credibility back on
You
the
can
line.
believe him. You can believe him.
I
Frankie is the real mage guy.
Yeah.
He's a real magic
Wizard.
guy.
I'm
The
a wizard on
wizard,
the
yeah.
coast.
is
There
On
you
the
that
go.
East Coast. Wizard of the East Coast.
I don't want to go into that, but I do. I want to poke the bear with the whole Pinkerton situation. Anyway, uh, but now that we've covered that, now that I know that I'm not mistaken. I wanted to talk about how you guys originally met, and how, like the journey of like having your original member, a transition away from that, and now a transition back to it.
Yeah. Well, Frankie and I and Santi, we've all known each other quite a long time separately. Frankie and I played in a band together in high school. It was my first band. We were called Enigma Addicts, and we were like a cover band. It was like kind of like lame, but we had a lot of fun, and I think we just hit it off really hard. Um, Santi, if I'm remembering correctly, I met Santi like at the end of middle school because you had just come in from Venezuela, right? Santi, what year did you come?
Absolutely. I got to the US in 2014. So
Uh-huh.
wait, 14? No,
14?
2010.
No way.
2010.
2010. There you go.
So we met
Okay.
in
So,
that year.
high school, like early high school. Yeah.
Yeah. You were
Yeah.
one of the first people I met
Um,
in the US.
nice. And yeah, we just vibed really hard. After high
Hmm.
school, like I mean, our Frankie and I's band kind of like I mean, we didn't do anything ever, but we ran into each other at an Animals as Leaders show. And at that point, I had already started kind of like germinating on the Pavlov's music. Like I was just like with a looper in my room, just like fucking doing like little ideas, Like I feel like that's like a gateway drug for songwriting, 100%, especially when
Mm.
you like feel like the spark.
Which is kind of crazy
And
because we're seeing Animals as Leaders this weekend for the
it is,
10-year
yeah.
anniversary of Joy Emotion.
It's a full
So
circle moment. We're going
Hmm.
to St. Pete to go see them. It's like 5 hours away, but we're going as a band, as a pilgrimage. Feels
That's
feels
awesome.
right, you know. Um, but anyway, yeah, like so I ran into him there at the show after not seeing him for a couple years, and it was just kind of like immediately like, yo, like let's fucking jam.
Hmm.
And we jammed,
Hmm.
and at the time it was me, Frankie, and this guitar player George, who was also friends with Santi, and it just felt kind of organic. Like I called Santi up, I got a synth, and I'm like, I don't play this fucking thing, but I know someone who's like a genius musician who could. And for a while it was the four of us, then it was just the three of us. Um, then Santi, I guess you got like pretty busy with life stuff and school stuff.
Yeah.
Um, we had David for a while. The record that we are about to put out is with the old lineup, but Santi like track stuff on top too.
Oh,
But at
really?
this point, we're just the three of us, and I mean, this whole year we've just been like kind of like just moving forward. Writing new stuff too outside of the stuff, but like just trying to like bring the band up to activity. Because for a while there, probably like 2 years, it was just me and Frankie really. And
Sure. Yeah.
we
So
were
how
yeah,
did that work with Santi coming back to the band? When did that happen?
dude, I want to say that we like hung out and
Hmm.
it was just kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same shit. It's the bug of like, let's jam. That's
Yeah.
it's too tempting. It's too tempting.
Yeah.
Uh and it's just fun. Like I feel like when like this band has always had that spirit of experimentation, like literally. And I feel like the science rock bit is like it's in part like kind of a jab at like genre in general. I feel like it's kind of made up, but it's kind of true because this band has always had that sense of experimentation. We've always been down to try shit. We've done sets that are completely improvised. Like we're really down to just like get freaky with it.
yeah, for a while it was
So the
just
jamming is a big part.
for a while like
Yeah.
we would do for those like 2 years where it was just Antonio and I, we would do a lot of gigs where it was just we would get there, set up like whatever we want to experiment with and just improvise the entire set. And it was interesting. Sometimes things would happen, sometimes things would not happen. It would go nowhere. And people would be very confused in the crowd, like, what are okay, cool. I see what these guys are doing.
It's always
Yeah.
fun to do, but I mean, yeah, I've only played a little bit in improv situations, live improv situations like that, and there are a couple of duds here and there in my memory, but I remember like if you're working with talented people such as yourselves, it's the odds are higher that like at least people are gonna be able to like balance while like going to and from the bar and be like, yes, I have no idea what's going. This is cool. It'll be passively interesting, but there are other times when maybe you are bringing a particular. Maybe you're just really communicative that night, or really in one of your fields, or all your fields, and something really crazy happens with improv too. Did you guys record any of that stuff?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, some of
Yeah,
it
it does exist.
is on my Instagram. I think I have like some like little improvisations on my reels or something like that. Um,
I
From
wanted to
those
make
sets.
I
yeah, I
think
wanted
so.
to
Yeah, I
make
think
like
I have one of those sets up there.
a fucking like live record that was just like excerpts of like improv shit. But that didn't really pan out. It could pan out still. I think that would still be a cool idea to just like collect the coolest ones, and kind of like, make a thing. Um,
Some
the
people use
whole
it for
like
like transitions.
exactly, yeah, like kind of like find the things that are good and like make it sculpt it into a thing, kind of like post after the fact, But well, we might still do that one day, probably.
Yeah, that'd be
I'm
cool.
very fascinated. It's also like the like kind of capturing like a lightning in a bottle kind of thing, like because like literally sometimes you do some shit that just never it doesn't ever come out the same again,
Mm.
Right,
like it's just
right.
like that shit happened in that moment and it's like okay that was fire but like how do we do that, you know because you're just
It's
you catch a vibe, it's
yeah,
it's interesting.
it's weird how that can contrast with like when because I know you guys practice so much as well. Like you have
Mhm.
very regimented, at least it appears that way because you guys are in so many projects. You know what it takes to let's say nail the part, or at least be present enough in a part, even if you're having a shitty night personally or whatever, or
Sure.
thinking whatever. That takes a bunch of repetition. It's funny how, despite all of that, shows can still come across in like kind of a weird way. Not necessarily that you would have a bad show, but like the impression overall, maybe on the musicians themselves, wouldn't be the same as like the walking away from like what did we just do, as far as the
Right.
shock of like improvisation.
Sure.
I wonder if that's like what jam bands get hooked on, but then that's
Mm.
also what their like Achilles heel is, like
100%. 100%. Because you can get lost in the sauce, man. Like it can get like too noodly, too out, like and then it's just kind of like, well, like who's this for? Like it can be
yeah.
kind of safe to
Mm.
just kind of like be in that world for 17 minutes, like I feel like we probably have too much ADHD for that. We kind of are a little sporadic and probably with time, I hope that like we can like develop it a little bit more and be a little bit more comfortable with it. At least I'm talking for me, for sure. Um, but it when it goes bad, at least make it weird. Like if you can't make it good, make it weird. Like like that's kind of like the philosophy of this
Or
band
embrace
in that
embrace the
respect.
cringe, whenever it comes out.
Sure, sure. This is like
when when the cringe becomes based. It does happen, man. And I mean, yeah, but I mean, I'm really glad that you brought up those points, because there's definitely memories of mine in my own experiences where, like, let's just say like the most professionally, most pressurized setting for like maybe a festival show or something's wrong. All of a
sure.
sudden, at the end of a great song, of a great set, holy shit, this dude's a bar behind. I'm pretty sure this dude's a bar ahead. What is going on? And like, let's just say I've been there one time in particular, stands out in a very hot summer day in a festival in Oregon. Things were like detuning. The
Mm,
reverberations were, something was going off. There was traffic immediately behind the stage, and there was no way to embrace what was happening. And
yeah.
the mistake, I would say, the only mistake out of all of every wrong no, every wrong everything, was letting each other know non-verbally that we hated each other in that moment. Like,
How can you ruin this for me? I fucking
yeah,
hate
it
you.
was not good.
It's so stupid because like, it's like shit is out of your hands, you know what I'm saying? Like when shit goes wrong with the sound or the place or whatever, it's like really out of your hands, but it can be so you take it so personally. But I feel like um I think we're pretty good spirited about that shit. I think we mostly laugh about when shit it goes awry, which I think is probably the best thing that you can do in terms of a performance because
Mhm.
there's not a lot of things that you can do on a guitar or drums that actually track as an error to like someone watching a show that isn't a musician. Like
Sure.
how people don't really know that you fucked up if you fuck up. really. Like it's really hard, especially in instrumental music. It's like, oh, okay, it's just weird. But I feel like if you look that way, if you give that demeanor, like something's
Hmm.
wrong, like it becomes more trackable, So I feel like you got to roll with the punches sometimes. It's
I,
harder than it looks sometimes,
I
but
I agree. I agree with that a lot. I think there is merit in embracing entropy, right? Because we all like structure, right? And that's, you know, if you have structure, you can pretty much create anything. But entropy can be part of structure. It can play into the flow of things. And
sure.
just like Tony said, once entropy knocks the door, you just have to welcome it and try to put the pieces together again, you know?
True.
And you know that can be also part of the art process as well.
That's beautifully said. Honestly, I appreciate that. And because that has kind of a existential aspect to it as well, the way you put it. And that sort of leads me to the next question is like I love that Pavlov's bell has sort of, whether it's created or something you have received in this way that you just embrace this science rock aspect, is interesting because, yeah, it's a jab genre like you're saying, but it's also like it's not, I feel like it's less insulting than math rock. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I feel like it's accurate. Like honestly, like as nonsensical as it is, and I'll tell people like, yeah, we're science rock, and they're like, okay, like what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything really, but I feel like it's accurate, and it just I don't know. It's kind of a joke, but at the same time, I do feel I math rock, I feel has such a connotation of a sound, like I feel like it's so linked to the sound of like Midwest emo bands, like some post rock, tippy tappy fucking guitar noodle. Like that's like such a sound. I feel like and that's really the problem with genre. Like it's very like limiting, but it's also music is so ambiguous too. Like it can be so many things, especially instrumental music. It can be so loaded with like layers of random shit because obviously everyone has their influences that they bring to the table.
He
But
says with a Telecaster in his hands.
Hmm.
How is that, by the way? How's your new guitar?
fucking love it, dude. I've been like, it's I want to play it. Like I look at it and I'm like, I want to have it in my hands. It feels good. Honestly, I really like it.
Is it
I've never had
something
a
you
Telly.
consider playing your bass six parts with like a pedal on? And or is it just something like
No,
a different?
so this record is all baritone. Actually, it's the first record that I play only
Oh,
guitar.
okay.
Um, like during the sets, I have one of these guys and I have a bass six too. And I'll swap between like we do like blocks, like so it's like we'll do like the older stuff first, or whatever the set is, but we do it in blocks so that the guitar change makes sense. But
Right.
um,
Okay.
yeah,
And sorry, I didn't mean to like get super off track with that, but what I was
Mhm.
not on your about, I just realized like I am getting into this thing where like as soon as I can, I want to shit on math rock with my voice.
no, yeah, please give me your take, man. I'm curious to
Um,
hear what is the disparaging take?
no, it wasn't a disparaging take. What I was trying to say is like in the aspect that I was mentioning science rock, the other bands, like if I were to just take that at face value, the other bands that I would think of would be like Three Trapped Tigers
Hmm.
or Strobes, both bands that have, even if I were to know nothing about Pavlov's Bell, if I heard them in a playlist, I would be like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
And so to further that connection, one of my favorite bands that have members of both of those bands, I think, is Evil X. I don't know if you guys have heard that record. It's
No.
Matt Calvert and Adam Betts doing something
Mm.
like, well, you should check it out. It is
I'm
something
saving it
like,
on Spotify right now.
sorry, what was that?
I'm saving it on Spotify right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got a creepy like lady face on the cover. It's like kind of pinkish. It's a really
Mhm.
cool record. And yeah, if you think about like imagine Three Trap Tigers with the synths stripped way back and
Oh,
more
okay,
of a distorted baritone guitar situation.
cool.
So I think if you hear it, you might hear that you guys have a ton in common, more so than the aesthetics you guys have like shared in the past. And
It's interesting.
I'm really happy about that as a fan. I'm just like, so it's not just me kind of like having a personal connection with guys, like kind of forcing them. This is like very real in the way that these dudes are geniuses.
Yeah, it's
For
strange the connection that we've had to like. I mean, it's not that we know any of those people, but like from because that music is relatively obscure here in the US, I would say. Like the UK, fucking the
it's bigger.
UK, that whole sound, that whole thing that's happening, that has happened there, like Cleft, Strobes, fucking Three Trap Tigers, fucking all that shit. Like it's like that whole Arctangent scene in a way. Like it's interesting how much that has like rubbed off on us, especially like early aughts. Like Frankie and I especially were like really basing out on that music. Frankie went to Arctangent.
Yeah.
I feel like
I wish I could have
phys
seen Three Trap Tigers this year.
yeah,
That would have been, oh my God,
Physics
so
House
epic.
Band also is another one. Like all this music like is part of the DNA of what we do 100%. But I feel like we've always been like a little bit more fluid with our shit because of the instrumentation itself. Like it's always been a little bit like doesn't really sound like that music, but it definitely like is informed by that music. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah,
definitely like I want to make a record that sounds like Strobes. I don't know if that'll ever happen in my lifetime, but I would love to because yeah, like I pretty much worship that record. I think that's like
It
a
will.
10 out
It
of 10.
will. It will
yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
Santi and
believe
I
it.
were working on some shit and I was like, dude, this sounds like Strobes. Like it made me so excited. I
Have
don't
you
know if we'll
guys
be able
heard
to pull it
Angus
off, but
Bailey?
yeah.
There was a while ago. I wish it blew up more, but this dude Angus Bailey put out a track that was produced by a couple of those guys, and it sounds a
Okay.
lot like Strobes too.
That's sick.
But yeah, it's you're right. It's really interesting to think about how like American audiences, or I should say like audiences in the US, have a history of sleeping on stuff and waiting for the UK to blow it up and bring it
Yeah.
back. But we
Yeah.
have such a different interaction with other countries these days, that I wonder if that process is more difficult, or like slower, I should say, because
Well, it makes
they,
sense. It makes
yeah,
sense.
we have the
Because
internet and that can transcend those boundaries. But as far as like physically being there to absorb the energy, it reminds me of, not, I don't want to like highest pedestal possible for you guys, but like it reminds me of the story of Jimi Hendrix and other artists where like they were doing the thing here, but people were sleeping on it. And then
yeah.
we're like, well, my
Mm.
management has enough money to send me over to UK for a little bit. We're just going to see what happens. And people like blow it up. And then they come back
Yeah.
like hometown hero situations. So, things like that do happen, but I guess it's just on a different scale. But yeah, you guys have your own flavor for all that, for sure.
It's
Just like,
definitely a dream to go over there. I feel like it would be playing our tangent or any of that shit would be fucking incredible. I feel like
Yeah.
we would be hopefully welcomed into that scene. I feel like it would be a good fit. I don't know.
yeah, if you put it
That's
out
me
there, I'm
like
sure it'll
just
pick you up.
speaking hopeful words, but
I think so too. Even some people that I met at Arctangent, they had already like heard some Pavlov'S stuff, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like they're like, oh, you guys are like the physics house man. I'm like, I guess, yeah, kind of.
That I don't know, but I mean, yeah, you guys could definitely be like the other bands. You could be on the playlist, but you would stand out for sure. Physics House Band is like really spreading out into like the jazz thing,
Yeah.
and I think
very
that
jazz.
uh,
I think
it's
once they started working with that dude, Adrian, like the guy that played horn in Volta,
oh my
that guy
god,
like plays horn in their band, like straight up.
um, he is all over the place now. He
Hmm.
just did a video game, and or he did soundtrack for a video game. He's worked with a bunch of metal artists too. When we spoke a couple of years ago, he just did work with the guy from Born of Osiris, and yeah, he's always
Wow.
surprising me.
Yeah.
What a savant, dude. And if I remember correctly from our chat, he met Omar Rodriguez Lopez as his father's music teacher. or something like that. It was like
Wow.
his dad knew him from school as a teacher.
Oh wow.
I'll have to go back and fact check that, but it was not the connection I thought. I was like,
That's
oh, so you
bizarre.
didn't meet at a bar at a gig? He was like, no, I was a teacher. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, what a cool cast of characters. So now that the record is sort of like we're in like the promo cycle, kind of. You guys have the new single. Do you guys have any particular memories regarding this song or that recording process for that particular, like those riffs or those moments, the beats or anything like that?
Yeah, I remember how it started. It was Frankie just like doing like a weird beat in 9/8, but that felt very square.
Non
Like, yeah, yeah, that's it was like the working title, and it just kind of it's like a weird techno song. I've always thought of it as like a weird goth like nightclub techno song. Even though like those adjectives don't really make that much sense in my head, that's
that
kind of like
was
the genesis of it, you know. Just like a very like strange song. It has very dissonant chords, like, but it's like very repetitive too. So it's and there's layers that build on top of each other, and it's just kind of like a big loop. And yeah, like um
Yeah, I remember like
I
I'm like, oh, we don't have a song in nine yet. And then I was thinking I'm like, will Antonio be able to learn this? So I like tried playing something and he kind of couldn't get it at all at first. And then I just kept breaking down the beat until it got to where it is, like where it's like just a dun dun dun. It's like very square as he
not
puts it.
condescending at all, drummer. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank
It's
you for
okay.
dumbing it down for me. I couldn't play it,
Yeah.
but I
yeah.
think it's a very unique song for it because of its like very like rigid and simple kind of structure. Like I feel like it compositionally it became much more dynamic in a way. It has more breathing room. I feel like a lot of our shit, especially like early aughts, is like really busy and like there's a lot of shit happening always. It's like very ADHD. And I feel like and
Yeah.
on this record in particular, I feel like there's more dynamic. It's more I
It's
feel
more
like it's a
intentional. Like,
more intentional. That's the operative word. I think the whole thing was done with a lot of intention. Um, yeah, I remember jamming that shit and just like feeling it immediately. Like I like it very evocative. Like for whatever reason, like that combination of like that drum beat and like just those two chords that on the guitar. And it kind of just took a life of its own. And in the recording, it's been a mission to try and get it to actually breathe the way that I feel like it does, like when we play it. I think we nailed it. We'll see.
It definitely has a cool texture, and I think it's a good single too because it represents a lot of the. I think what you're kind of talking about is in terms of being intentional with the production too, and like the overall. It has like a very darker, like a darker. I don't want to say vintage, but maybe a tape feel. Does that make more
Sure.
sense?
Yeah, yeah,
And I know that like the last record was like essentially a pretty wild journey concept too, like that
yeah.
went into nightmares, and you were probably chasing a lot of different. I mean, I know that you were chasing a lot of different like sonic scenery to match, not just the
Definitely.
music, but like what these people were talking about. So
Mhm.
it's interesting to hear the band sort of like when you spread out like that, it's good to hear it bounce back on an EP too. Like not necessarily. I think it was smart that it was an EP, is what I'm
Mhm.
trying to say. I'd love to
Yeah,
hear more of the exact same stuff,
yeah,
but being what it is today with just like attention spans, I think an EP to demonstrate not just that you're bouncing back to like sort of a core almost experimental aspect, because it's not like this doesn't really sound like your previous stuff
no,
before
no, and
Monica
I think
either.
that's definitely again intentional. Like I feel like it is a delineation. I feel like Malanota was a culmination of like pretty much all of the years that we've been a band up to that point. Like we had made a record prior, but it was kind of at least my first time making a record. So like the learning process is like pretty steep, like when you first make your first record or whatever. It was basically a collection of recordings that were done like however were possible, like, hey, can I go into this room for like 4 hours and just set up microphones and just be here? Like, fine, like that was that vibe. Malanota was like more the culmination of like probably like 5 years of experience of playing together and like those songs germinating for that long and just like put together, thought out with a very like conceptual kind of mindset. um, Physics is conceptual, but it's a different kind of thing. It's more of an aesthetic concept. Uh, I wanted to make a record that sounded like a physics textbook, and I know that that sounds insane, but I deliberately I remember talking about this with Frankie, and Frankie pretty much got what I was going for kind of immediately. Like we even like we were fucking around with that idea for a while, and it kind of was born in an aesthetic before the music, which is weird. Like, um,
How would you
yeah.
describe that? How can you help us understand what it means to have a record that
I
sounds like
think it'll help like with album art and all of that because it's definitely like a big part of the presentation of the music, like all the kind of visual elements that come along with it. But
okay.
if I could translate that to something that would be sonic, like very like very sterile, clinical, but also fucking like shit going awry, like fucking foam out of fucking beakers and
I get
fucking
it.
like but like in a very like clean, sterile environment. I don't know if I'm making any sense. I know
No,
this
no,
is
no,
insane,
no.
but
I think what's coming to mind for me as you say that, and again, like the imagery, I forgot, like the imagery for the single and the album, like that does tie things together.
Mhm,
But the situation that was coming to mind mentally when you were saying that is like I was picturing a beaker.
mhm,
The beaker is clear, thick glass. It's not going to
yeah,
explode. It's made to take whatever, but like inside is bubbling, I don't know, hydrogen fluid that's ready
sure,
to destroy everyone in the room forever. And that makes sense because that's heavy, right? You're like,
mhm,
oh, you don't want to
right,
drop this shit. And
Hmm.
I do get a lot of like the meticulousness on the record, as well as like a lot of like the dirtiness that reminds me of Evil X. But maybe that's like, I don't mean dirtiness in terms of like uncleanliness. It's
yeah,
like
it's
feels
grimy,
it feels
uh-huh,
it's being worked with.
yeah, yeah,
So it's really cool. But also to maybe to speak to that, maybe not. But like you guys are all involved with various projects. Can you guys talk about with how those things over the last few years, if you've been a little less active, how those might have influenced the process either for this single or for the EP?
for sure. Frankie, you wanna?
Um, yeah,
I
sure.
want.
So, Santi, go for it.
I just wanted to add something to your previous question about this question of whether the experimentation informs the concept of the album or whether the initial concept that we form in our heads that shapes the record. And well, Frankie and I, we went to this math rock concert in Palmetto. You remember, Frankie?
Yeah, yeah.
You remember that this band? I forget their name. That it
Uh,
was just two brothers. That it was a guitarist and
yeah. Cloud
a
Chaser.
drummer.
Yeah.
What?
Oh
Cloud
hell yeah.
Chaser. Yeah, yeah.
Cloud Chaser. So there was something very interesting about other songs, right? They would have sections in which they would have a very calm flow, but then all of a sudden the dynamics will go all over the place. It will play super loud, very riffy and stuff. But they had this, back and forth with that, right? So after they played, I told them, "Wow, I just like how you guys play with what's this word I'm looking for? Volatility, right? There's times of very low volatility, right? Everything's super structured, but then there's high volatility, right? And that's a great concept to use for any song you want to make, right? In terms of the physics kind of stuff, low
Yeah.
volatility, high volatility. So that is a data point that can be found in science that you could use, right, in a way to express something in a song. And I think that's a key part of this album is how do we take the concepts we see in nature, in electricity, in science basically, and how do we bring it to life in terms of audio, in terms of sound, in terms of melodies, etc. So
Sure.
I think that's a key aspect of this album.
Wow. Okay. I'd love to see you guys continue to go down that rabbit hole, like where you go like, okay, now let's hold the music for a second. Let's go like have a science experience, go to like CERN laboratories,
Yeah,
uh,
dude.
get
Go
super
try fucking
inspired.
track the Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
Like fucking
Wow.
Right, right.
I should do like a
Uh,
comic book about that.
yeah. I think Santi put it beautifully. I think you have your clip there.
That
But
is
if
really cool.
if I could just like pivot back to what you were asking, I think the last couple of years where Pavlov's was a little bit less active, like Frankie and I especially. I mean, Santi, like he's a classical musician, a music teacher, like he's in music world 100%. But I think probably band life, would you say that like Pavlov's is probably the most band that you've been in?
Absolutely,
Yeah. It's like
absolutely.
rock, rock band
Yes,
vibes.
yes, and
Um,
even like very influenced also as well by Tony and Frankie when it comes to exploring math rock and just a bunch of sounds and aesthetics, and of course that has informed my way of listening to music. You know, to forming
Yeah,
my expectations about compositions,
mm,
and yeah,
I'd be,
uh,
yeah, I don't have anything to complain about in terms of you probably have two of the best heads feeding you constant ideas that I could pick for someone. So you're in good hands.
oh, but
oh,
Santi really is a fucking musical polyglot, like can really talk a lot of languages. I feel like probably the most special thing about having the three of us back is just the flow that we have with each other, just like a really good energy. Um, but yeah, the last couple of years have been insane. Even though Pavlov's was like not really that active, like we were still playing a lot. But we were touring and playing with our other bands. With Zeta, like I like fell back in love with the bass guitar. The bass is like my first instrument and like probably like just like the most connected that I feel to an instrument. Guitar and bass six have been always like a creative outlet, and so I always feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of like exploring that
Okay.
because it just lends itself to writing songs. You know what I'm saying? It's like the tool to do that. Um, but I fell back in love with the bass. I fell back in love with heavy music. I feel like I had not really been listening to that much heavy music. Like we had gone on some tours, like when we toured with High on Fire, like for me that was like so inspiring, dude. Like I just like fell back in love with just like big dumb distorted chords, like it's like I fucking love it. It's so visceral, it's so cathartic. Noise music in general, like but also appreciating simplicity. I think on my end, like
mm,
all of that shit kind of informs where I'm at now with my playing. I think just it's heavier, it's noisier, it's kind of weirder in general. Like I think definitely
With the
heavier
heavier
direction.
chemicals. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For me at least, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
for
kind of
me,
curious to
What
hear
about
what
you?
Frankie's experience.
I guess like working with this other band that I play with, Mold, it's kind of like an exploration of like my work ethic in a way. I I don't know, just like learning this music. It's music that is originally composed by the band, and then I kind of internalize it and interpret it my own way. But I don't know, I just work like really hard to try to make something sound like real, and it's different how we workshop the songs as opposed to something like Pavlov's where it's more spontaneous. Here it's more it's kind of more surgical in that sense where um yeah, just it's kind of interesting like bringing that and then bringing it to the physics stuff, like one track in particular from the EP that I can think of is The Thing that um I kind of like took some processes that I would do with my other band and then I worked it into doing like a back and forth with Antonio. It's like, oh, what do you think of this? And then I feel like I kind of want to explore more of that into going into whatever comes next.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just
You
being
haven't
able
heard this
to,
track, Mike. When I sent you the EP, it didn't have this song. It's like a last minute addition, but
Oh,
it's cool, dude. It's cool.
okay.
It's cool. It
yeah,
Upsetting.
falls, yeah, I know, my bad. It falls right into the category for whatever reason of like, we just have these like shorter songs that just like, fuck, I don't know. They're like, I don't like, I love a 1 minute song for some reason. Like it
It's
just
so
like goes
fucking
so hard.
intense.
It goes so hard, dude. I don't
yeah,
know. The thing was definitely that, which was sick to like work on it. Like we never even met up to play that song. Like that was something that I did with like a drum machine and a synth, and then I sent it to Frankie, and Frankie cut it all up and tracked real drums, and we like layered the drum machine, and yeah, it's just badass. Like fucking
yeah. And
goes
then on
super
top of
hard.
that, not only like the music, but also just like in the touring aspect, this is the first year for Pavlov's ever that we're doing two tours in 1 year. We did one back in April and we're doing one again in December.
Hmm.
And yeah, just having toured with like this other band and kind of getting that experience and also Antonio touring with Zeta, like just getting all that and putting it into one place, I feel like it's also influencing from other
And also
projects.
like the bands that we've been playing with, like Chew, like
Yeah.
Right.
we toured with them in April. Like that's those are people, that's connections that have been made through touring. But getting to play with them with Pavlov's was so fucking special because that's a band that I remember Chew playing in Miami like before Pavlov's was a band, and just being so inspired by like just the rawness. Like just very influential. So like for me, it was a big moment. Like I was like, holy shit, we get to play with you. Like that
Yeah.
fucking rules. And on December we're gonna tour with Ed Hockey League, which is a fucking powerhouse band. I don't know if
Yeah,
you're familiar, Mike, but
I am. Yeah. I
powerhouse band.
the
You
last
know,
time first one I heard, and I actually was talking to Wanchi about them yesterday. He yeah, I interviewed Wanchi at 9 a.m. yesterday, so I've had a great couple of days getting
Nice
to
weekend.
connect with my friends. Yeah. And
it's beautiful.
it was really cool to he yeah, honestly the last like 5 minutes I am talking about you guys. But the uh Ed Hockley was a band I heard during my research for one of the Tuesday music dumps. And when I was done with it, it was like the only record that I kept going back to, despite shouting out like the 30, 40 records. I was just like, this record is massive. And it sounds a lot like Mastodon at their
Sure.
prime. And
Hmm.
yesterday, Wanshi blew me away by telling me that they were basically active for the last like 20 years. And I
Hmm.
had no clue they were so old.
Yeah,
I thought that they were a new band. So yeah, I have a whole rabbit hole to go down with those guys, but I'm
100%.
discovering them.
Those guys are like I feel like I see like a very strong parallel with them and Zeta, in the sense that it's like really a like once you see it, you get it. Like I feel like at Hockey is
Oh,
like a thing you have to see, like that it's just so
so the live shows
impactful.
are that powerful as
Oh
well.
my God. It's my like that's my favorite way to enjoy them for sure. Like
Okay.
that's like yeah, dude. Like that's um such an impactful fucking band. They are fucking awesome. I love it,
And
Hockey.
where's the tour going?
It's just, well, they're doing a whole thing, but
Oh,
we're
they
just
okay.
playing 5 shows with them in Florida, and along with this band called Caution Children, which is a
Oh, right.
Jacksonville band that's also very epic. Members of Jillian Carter, pretty much all of Jillian Carter is in it. I don't know if you know that band, but
I know of it.
very quintessential Florida fucking screamo heavy metal fucking outfit. So we're playing with heavy bands, which is fucking cool. I'm a little scared, but at least we're playing before them.
I
You know?
think it'll work. You guys really do. I mean, the way that we've kind of been describing the process behind the record and also the background of the bands and the just the musical backgrounds you guys have had for the last couple of years, it makes sense that you can work with heavier bands. It's sometimes it's all about context, and you can get away with that alone. But I think you guys
Mm.
are developing a sound that works more and more in heavy aesthetics, even without leaning into being super heavy. Even the last record would I would say like it would make like a perfect opening thing for something like Animals as Leaders one day. Like the technicality and the musicality are both there, and it's a perfect sort of mashup in my opinion, maybe for someone who's at Animals as Leaders because they know of it and appreciate a couple songs but are like, a lot of this shit doesn't make any sense to me, but then
Right.
they hear you guys and then they're like, well, all of this made sense to me but also was like very overstimulating. I'm all about this now. So yeah, I hope one day, I hope you guys when you catch them, when are you seeing them? This was it this week?
This weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I hope you guys get
I
some
think
hang
one
time.
week from today,
Might
like
try to
Sunday.
take him a record or something. We'll see.
Yeah, just tell him Fat Mike sent you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm here from Fat Records.
I'll fucking pull up,
Yeah.
like, yo.
Oh man, that's a is that like a an older shirt? Oh, right.
This is from the Brooklyn show. It's like a pizza Fat
Oh,
Mike.
it's got his horrible clown shit
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's like a pizza shirt. It's good.
it
Yeah.
is cool. Did those last three shows that they played in San Pedro, that's where I grew up.
Wow.
Yeah, I miss San
Really?
Pedro all the time.
No way, dude. I was so enamored, like the fog, like on the fucking dude. Wow. Wow,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah, I grew up
I
with that.
saw a seal. I saw a fucking wild seal like fucking like dip into the ocean, and I've never felt so alive. It was incredible.
There's a
That was a surreal day, dude. I don't know how to talk about it really. I'm still
yeah,
processing it.
yeah.
Like I don't want to like super like fucking hijack the interview, but I want to tell you this because I know like that you fucking love No Effects.
No,
Like
this is a good point to do that.
this was a really special like that day was so fucking special, dude. Like our set was a disaster kind of like but the energy was so strong that it didn't matter, like it was insane. But afterwards like the sun was setting and like that show was at like that pier, like it's like a fucking like I guess like cruise ships go out of there. I don't know, it's very very beautiful, very scenic, all the trailers against the water, like it was really cool.
Yeah.
But the last catering, right, so like this was the very last show, the last catering that NoFX had, and like all the NoFX shows were super like familial, like everyone would go and just like eat together. Like you'll see everyone there. Like El Jefe is always like the first in line, dude. Like he's always like he already knows when catering's coming and shit. But dude, like the sun was setting, and dude, we were there with Marcel and Gabriel. Gabriel went to film
Oh,
everything on he filmed everything. So I think one day he'll probably make something with it. But we're there with Marcel, us, right? We fucking get to the catering. It's just Tim Armstrong and the dude from Bad Religion just sitting there, like against the sunset. It's just we got there like early. There's like
oh,
holy shit! Like we like introduced ourselves and stuff, and we were hanging out, and like more people come, and like all the tables start to fill out, and we have this like we have our own little table, it's like Zeta, and it felt in that moment like so touching. Like it was like this like you look around and it's like a who's who of like punk music, like fucking iconic music that like shaped a sound. And everyone's just like eating together and it's like the sun is setting, like NoFX is about to go on, um, their last show ever. And like there was just this like crazy energy in the air, dude. Like I don't know how to describe it, but I like it felt so beautiful to see like Zeta like have its place there, like in the shit, like it was like Marcel, Gabriel, like everybody there, like getting to kind of like have a place in that space, I guess. Like it was surreal, dude. Like it was a fucking
yeah.
trip, man.
I can't
It was a fucking
imagine
trip.
like having to digest all of that. Like, first of all, thank you for telling me all of it. That's like a really beautiful story, doubly so because I can picture it so well. I know
Mhm.
exactly what you're talking about in terms of the environment and like seeing the sunsets and the fogs and all that. I mean, honestly, probably Tim and Brett sit at wherever they were sitting, probably more often than you think.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Uh, that it's so close to LA. That was just the place to see people. I think we saw Marilyn Manson at a Carl's Jr. once. It was just like kind of the place that you would see people and be like, I'm pretty sure that was so and so, and then they would be confirmed later. And growing up around that was very it felt like for me and like what I wanted to do with my life, I remember feeling like very right place, right time. Like I'm glad I was born here, not in like South Central LA, but like being
Hmm.
San Pedro, where like people go to chill from LA. Ended up meeting, a lot of those the people I'd hear on K Rock, being
Sure.
NoFX, Rancid, they just be around. My friend was a lifeguard and knows all of like Avenged Sevenfold, who are also like close with all those guys and NoFX,
Yeah.
just from being in Huntington Beach. So yeah, it's to hear all of those things is touching. I can't imagine processing it and trying to bring it to anything else you do other than just hold that as like a sacred moment, kind of like it almost sounds like something you'd experience after you die, you know?
Yeah, it kind of felt it like the energy was like funeral vibes in a way because it's like the death of a band, like a willing death of a band, like going out on your own terms, like that's what they did basically.
Yeah.
Um, so that was the vibe. It was like a mourning, but also like holy shit, we're all here, like like and for them especially, I'm sure. Well, we were just like spectators of the thing, really, like that's not really our scene. That's not really like we started playing with NoFX 2 years ago, which is a fucking trip. Um, but that was the first one in Austin in late or sorry, not 2 years. I guess like a year and a half. Like I think it was like April 23, the first one
Is that the
of their
secret
tour.
show situation? That
No, that was 22. That was 22.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if
That
you guys
was
knew
yeah.
that. I mean, that story is so funny to me because I
That's
remember
where we
like,
met Donovan.
oh, interesting.
That's where we met Donovan, is that fucking secret show. And we had like hit him up to like play with Fall of Troy because we knew Tommy. But Donovan was just there. Like and he was just like after we played a Zeta song at the end of the set, at the Codefendant set. Like Sam was like, "All right, this is gonna fucking
Yeah.
play the song, shit." And he's like, Donovan's like, "Wow, guy, like, what was this like post-hardcore shit? Like, uh, yeah, whatever." I digress, but it's a trip. That whole thing has been a fucking weird trip, and of course, it's influenced what we do. I feel like just like knowing how deep the water can go, I feel like makes you step with more intention, I think. Just like seeing those big productions, like when we opened for Event Sevenfold, like seeing what an arena show looks like all this shit, like it just informs your ethic, your how you operate, how you see the thing, like very much we have fun, but we very much take it seriously. We have like a lot of reverence for what we do. We take the work serious. Um, and yeah, like I feel like it's inexorably part of it. Like all the shit that we've gone through has like I feel like it's the same for anyone. Like I feel like you can't take away experience. Like it just like mounts and it just informs what you do. I feel like I'm talking too much. You guys talk.
No, no, no. You actually like that was a good little Tony story, but like
Yeah.
again, very important, very beautiful, and I think as I said to Wanchi yesterday, and we'll get back a little more to Pavlov's well in a second, but like as I said to him yesterday, I think this is important stuff to get down because impressions of the bowing out of that band is going to make way for what needs to come next.
Sure.
And I think having Wanchi explain the story to me yesterday, like as in as much detail as he did, is like such an honor to have like this little moment that I can document for other people that are into punk music.
Sure.
And having this connection with Pavlov's Bell and specifically is like also like for anyone out there that is in like I don't know how you would say that has any stake in how Fecking Bahamas or how Math Arc is perceived.
Mhm.
It's what I love about this connection between the musicality of all the members of Zeta and Pavlov's Bell, and like really just a lot of musicians in general these days, in what seems like the Florida scene too, is there's this connect to, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but like folk music, in the way that folk comes from just like working class experience, comes from the everyday experience, comes from
Mm.
universally accepted experiences in a way. And like you all have drastically different lives, but you all work your asses off. And I think the yeah, I don't want to have to go down the rabbit hole of like, work hard is better luck and all that. But like considering you all have pretty high work ethic, I feel like you also are all very humble about it. And this connection to just being a common, nice, normal person is so appreciated on a personal level, but I think it also helps uh make it real that I think this connection between like being trying to be like humble and normal and like level has solidifies this connection between folk music or like cultural connections and punk rock and math rock. I think I've been thinking a lot about the loss of like, so like if punk is an
Mhm.
extension of folkisms in a way of like the 50s and 60s beatnik stuff,
Mhm.
um, when it gets amplified into punk music is not necessarily a disconnect. It's just maybe we think of it differently, but it's like poetically maybe like a child of that sort of thought process. And
Sure.
so math rock can kind of be like a grandfathered into that. But I don't know. I love that in Zeta and Pavlov's Bell, you guys have enough salt in you. You guys aren't pretentious pricks. You guys
Mhm.
know probably a lot of pretentious pricks. I know I do. And it
Nah,
we
nah.
all know there's a 1 in 4 chance here in this room.
No, no,
There's at
no.
least one prick in this call. Uh, it's me. What I'll say
Nah,
is this, dude. I'll say
nah.
this. I'll say this. I think I think that when you I think the thing that unites us as a band is the love for the thing, the reverence for the craft of the thing. I don't know how else to put it. Like
The song that's
all of us
coming
are
out
like
after
pretty
February.
pretty obsessed with like music in general. And like I think that when you love the thing enough, there is a distance between yourself and this bigger kind of entity, right? And so like for me at least, like even though we are like playing the instruments and like doing the thing, um there is like a bigger picture. Like it's not just like, oh, I fucking did this. It's more like our contribution. It's like it is a humble offering in a way because like it's just our take on it. Like it's not definitive of anything. It's just like our thing, and we're just doing our thing together. I think for Pavlov's, our friendship is a big part of like why we even do this because like we just like hanging out with each other and playing music. So I think having it grounded in that and not having it be such like a grandiose thing, even though it means the world to us, but not putting it not putting our art on a pedestal in a way, respecting it and having reverence for it, but not like still being able to laugh about it. Like it's absurd. Like art is absurd, and like just flat out.
It's like
Especially when
scientists having an hypothesis.
exactly.
I love
I wanted to echo on that real quick. Of course, this could turn into a very long philosophical discussion, but I'm just gonna say just one thing that there's this question of how connected is the art to the artist, right? And of course, everybody. I mean, there's some truth to the following thing, which is that you cannot disconnect the artist to its art, right?
Mhm.
There's good argument for that, but I believe also, and I have many arguments for the contrary. Art is its own entity and can be disconnected from the artist, right? When we look at a painting for the first time or we listen to something and we don't know anything about the artist, well, that piece of art, that creation, it just becomes something that is inside of our heads now, and the way we interact with that art becomes ours with no thought of the artist, right? And I think there's a lot to be said about that. How art itself is its own entity, even though we got the to participate in bringing something to light to life. Sorry, art can be its own entity.
I
So
100% agree with that, dude.
I just wanted to echo on that you know this is composing is just a celebration of exploring in this context sound and all its possibilities, all its combinations, and also lack of combinations too. So I just wanted to echo on that.
What
That's really cool.
beautifully put, dude. Fucking man, like when we hang out, it's this shit all day, dude. Like we just fucking rabbit
Yeah.
hole, fucking.
And
But
this could be
like,
a
think
very
about
long
your favorite record.
conversation.
You know,
Yeah,
like your favorite record is yours. You know what I'm saying? Like that shit is it's not like you might know every detail about how it was made and everything, but it's
exactly.
yours. Like it like it's part of your life, you know? And like I think that like letting go of that process of music, like in that sense, like it does like transcend and become someone else's shit. Like right now the record is ours because only we know about it, you know, like but
Oh,
eventually when it's out in the fucking world, it's technically made by us, but it's not ours. It belongs to the people who listen to it and love it, you know, if they're
Right.
out there, you know, like
That's
that's
I was literally about to say that, and that reminds me, like, so is that a painful process for you sometimes
no,
when you had
no.
a
I mean, making records can be painful, but this one was uh this one was painful to make for reasons like it was a lineup change album that can be difficult. You know, we had to like readapt. We had to basically start over. Like I got them I like we had started mixes like 2021, and for 2 years it kind of just was like in limbo, and just this year I was able to get the recordings and like started working on them. But once the ball got rolling again, it was a joy. It was a beautiful experience. Like it's amazing. There's no feeling like it, honestly, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe to clarify a tiny bit, but like, is there ever a time where maybe you are, let's say, constantly honing a song and you're like, this just gets better, this just gets more exciting?
Mm.
How is it ever painful to like be like, all right, it's done, or like do you ever struggle to find like, okay, this song is done?
Such a good feeling when it's done. I feel like we have a good barometer of that. Usually when like too many overdubs start happening, it's like, nah, this is done. Like you know, I think you can't overthink it too much. I think it's easy to go overboard. I think on Milo Note that we went kind of overboard sometimes, but like,
It's long and
yeah,
conceptual, but yeah, I
yeah,
think it for me it was just right because as even a first time listen to that album, I just remember being like, this is a story, and I got to pay attention to like every word,
sure.
and it had like enough going on where you're never bored. But I think it's I love how the music has evolved from that, stayed that interesting and conceptual, and also sort of just honed in on this core thing that is more, in a way, like it's like more harmonically exciting, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. Like
Sure.
there's a
Yeah.
lot more like texture and weird stuff happening quicker and in a more
Hmm.
focused way that
It's
makes
ADHD friendly, 100%, you know.
yeah, and I think that even if we had a mild case before the pandemic, I think we just live in a conditioning system where that's just going to get worse. A lot of the songs that I'm writing specifically, once it gets around like 2 minutes to 30 seconds, I'm like, that is absolutely too long. Just for like,
Mm.
I want to be able to like sonically represent the story. So tell a
Well,
story
you've
of,
been on a punk tip too. I feel like that's pretty on par with like the punk thing. It's like short, like
yeah,
you
it
know,
needs to
like
be that way too. I mean, I feel like there is punk bands that will, or there are punk bands that will push that, but Even just like being reminded as recently as something like if you guys listen to the last Turnstile record,
Sure.
uh, there is most songs like get like one or two repetitions of an idea,
Hmm.
which is kind of like it reminds me of Deftones.
Sure.
Also reminds me of like the length of time of like early Rancid records, but not with the frantic like we gotta make it through in 130 seconds. Like a lot of those
Mhm.
songs are kind of at lower BPMs for such
They're
short.
pretty chill. Kind of
Yeah,
a phenomenon that record. It's interesting. I feel like that record kind of ushered hardcore back into the mainstream in a way. Like I feel like
definitely. Yeah, that's it's okay to say.
it made way for like all this shit that's happening now, like all these hardcore bands like Scowl doing Taco Bell commercials and shit. Like I feel like you can kind of blame Turnstile for that in a way. It's kind of interesting how that works.
Turnstile
But I feel like
also
they,
got a Taco Bell commercial, right?
huh?
Didn't they also do Taco Bell?
Turnstile?
Yeah.
Oh, probably. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, if it's Taco Bell, it's okay with me. It's
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Dude, Pavlov's Bell fucking loves Taco Bell, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
how have you guys not how have you guys not worked out a deal?
Um,
Wait a second, bro.
I'm calling.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
You're gonna.
Shit. Look at this. This is coming up on the merch, dude. Oh fuck. Is this gonna even work?
Well,
I
it
can
is
screen
bright.
share,
It
right?
is
Yeah,
bright white.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you. It's a Taco Bell bootleg Pavlov's Bell shirt. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
need it. Okay, fine.
yeah. I can send you a
But I feel like,
screenshot.
dude, we gotta get that fucking endorsement, dude. What's going on, dude? You guys
They,
got
I
all
know
these
there's
hardcore
rumors.
bands. You guys need some weird instrumental music for your fucking burritos, dude.
I want it to play every time I'm crunching on a taco. I want to hear like riffs from your songs and like resonating in my feelings or something.
Yeah, bizarre, conceptual. Yeah.
I just saw, I don't know if you guys go down these rabbit holes. I saw a speaker system recently that is I shouldn't say speaker system, it's a arc system where literally arcs of electricity are going between two poles and all the sound you hear, like for instance, you were me talking, where a record is purely
Electricity.
generated from the arc between the two
Wow.
poles.
That's
Uh,
insane.
a dude did that with a lighter, and so he's like through this little thing.
Holy shit. Very
Yeah,
science.
yeah. So I was like, well, I mean, as in, I was just like, as in, I was here thinking after drinking a whole Celsius and waking up, yeah, you guys should be able to crunch tacos and hear Pavlov's bell in your skull. Sorry about that. Sometimes at the end of these drinks, I say nonsensical shit. I don't know if you guys drink these over there at Celsius. I
Oh
don't know.
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I'm a coffee guy. I will always love
I didn't
coffee.
have coffee time this morning.
Uh,
I should have, but
Frankie
uh,
doesn't do any of that shit, dude. Frankie doesn't
Yeah.
drink coffee. You don't even drink Red Bull or anything, right?
No,
No.
I just stay hydrated.
Wow.
that's
yep.
the
You're rodent.
Michael, do you happen to drink mate?
So I'm glad you brought that up. I have a lot of it, and sometimes I do drink it. I have to put a
Very
couple
cool.
bags in for it to be effective as what I hear is like the traditional aspects of mate. We had a contributor at Fecking Bahamas, or I should say we still do. His name is Juan Gottfried. He is in Madrid, and whenever we talk on Zoom or Twitch about things, because he used to do stuff for us on Twitch,
Hmm.
uh, he would be drinking a very traditional mate setup. And
Nice.
I would be looking at it like, if anyone sees this one, they need to know that you are not like
Drinking weed. Just like a huge
right
pile
now.
of weed. He's like,
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a lot to look at for like the average U.S. citizen. You know, they order
yeah,
them. They
For a
get
person that doesn't know about it, could
yeah.
be
yeah.
anything,
Well, he
right?
had to explain it several times. I was like, "That's I don't really believe you, man." It's, uh, but
I
Um,
remember when we would do winter tours with Zeta, like we had a fucking like because taking it in the actual bags of mate, because that's for you to keep at your house and shit, and you like close it up good. But we'd have to put it in Ziploc, so we had a huge like Ziploc of mate. We're like, yo, what's up,
Oh,
bro? Like,
very good.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
It is good. I mean, do you guys have any? I mean, in terms of like what is accessible in terms of like what is easily accessible, I guess I should say. Do you have like any recommendations? Because I feel like the kind I have is nasty. Maybe it's all
I
me.
Okay.
feel like West Coast is harder to find, dude. I think you're probably the
If
guayaki, the yellow one, the one that they make the drinks that you can get at the gas station
Mm.
and stuff. That's the one that I remember actually being in Eugene and getting guayaki before a show.
Well,
I don't even
check
know
it
if that's
out.
how it's. Yeah,
I'm
it's a Brazilian
I'm
mate actually.
I'm going to
Um,
write in the chat the name because if I say it, it might not be as clear. But look, the best two brands of mate, right, are Canarias,
Okay.
right? If you find that bag, Canarias, it's either yellow or green.
Okay.
That's one of the best mates ever, and it's one of the most that people consume most in Argentina, right? And
Okay.
number two is called Taragui. So it's Tarageu with the two dots,
EU.
uh, and Gui Taragui. That is the most sold bag of mate in Argentina, and that was actually the first mate brand that I consumed, and I just love those two so much. So if you happen to come across those in California, which if you find an Argentinian place, well, those are the two brands that you will most likely find,
I'll
and
I'll
I recommend them a lot.
I sometimes go down to Las Vegas because that is the closest somewhat international grocery hub to me. Um, because being here in Southwest Utah, I get what Walmart gets. I get what
right.
that's slightly better than Walmart gets, and that's as good as it gets out here.
How close are
Uh,
you to Vegas?
about an hour and a half.
No shit.
Mm.
That's so trippy to me always, dude. Like,
I
I
love
don't
it.
know.
I am sad that that gas is expensive because otherwise I would be down there so much more.
Right.
Just shows. But also like I know that you know that I know that there's a lot of cool stuff going on in Vegas. I really need to make it down to the punk rock museum.
Hmm.
I need to take my sister there. My sister got me my first NoFX record for Christmas when I was like 11, and
Well,
so yeah, it's
which
all
one? Which one was it?
War on Errorism.
Mm, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Still my favorite in terms. I mean, I love all their records, but like War on
What's the one that
Air,
has the decline? No, the decline is the decline.
it's like the single that came out either right before or right after that.
Okay.
Uh, because it was definitely like a Bush thing, but
Hmm.
uh, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was like a Clinton thing.
I
Bush
think the
was
decline. It's definitely like a later one. I think.
either
Man,
way.
they
We
have
all
so
know
much
how
fucking music,
important
dude.
the song is.
You
Yeah.
have too much
Um,
music, probably.
it'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. I didn't know. I saw that Marcel got a recording credit for
The last
some.
NoFX record.
Yeah, on the NoFX record. That's
Yeah.
so cool. What a
Yeah.
thing of
His stories are crazy with Mike. They go way back though. Like
I
that's
he's told me a few
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
What a funny guy. When I last saw you, it was
Utah.
co-defendants in Utah. I saw him for a little bit, but you know how he is when he's like in sound mode. It's like talking to like a depressed robot. Um, yeah, and
I
I
don't
love
know. The console is not working. It's a piece of shit.
he just like lays on the floor. Yeah, no, I love that guy, and I mean, it's so cool to see how all his different he's I don't want to say he's a jack of all trades because he's so good at the things that he does. He
Yeah,
is an insane. You think he's one thing, but he's just such a mad scientist.
he
Um,
is. I
in
would love
ter-
to make a record with Marcel. Marcel doesn't want to make records anymore, but I think it would be a good time. But, you know,
it's a time, dude. He
he's a
puts
stubborn man.
pressure on you.
Yeah,
I have
I can
never,
imagine.
yeah, I have
You
never
guys,
been.
how many did you make with him?
Um, just two, I guess. Well, I mean, technically three, but just two. Two with
Hmm.
Child Speak, and then I did like a really quick thing with his or with Bree's partner. We did like a surprise birthday single thing for her using some old tracks, and he did stuff for that. But yeah,
Both of those were at Robert Lang.
both at Robert Lang.
Fucking
Yeah, and
epic,
I mean,
dude.
so it's just like such a vintage and specific situation too. Like, I think Pavlov's Bell sound would be really interesting in that environment because you'd be
Yeah.
working with not just your specific, very specific, like you were saying earlier, like sterilized environment and instrumentation that you have so much control over, but what's cool about that studio is you are very much bringing in the subterranean elements of the cave that the
Mhm.
studio.
Right.
You really got to be careful with that, man. Like, I honestly, like, I think that production style might benefit something more technical if it's reined in, like something that you guys do. But like,
Sure.
I think that I personally, like, I never want to record in that kind of environment again
Yeah.
because I want more of a closer sound to what I hear and
Sure.
less of the environment. I'm sure down the road I'll go back down the middle. But yeah, that's what working with
That's the
that
phase you're in now. That's the tip you're on. Yeah.
is.
I mean, I feel like, I mean, Thomas recorded a bunch of shit. Thomas from Follow Troy. Follow Troy's recorded there. Um, that's very, I feel like that's very uh up the alley for in terms of like, I mean, they're so fucking technical. You know what I'm saying? Like they're so fucking, that's
Yeah, it almost makes no sense. And I know they have different situations, but yeah, they Thomas, I that's surprising to hear, honestly.
yeah.
Do you guys ever think about having features in Pavlov's Bell in the way that you might in like your other projects or just with the people you've met in the last few years? Like, do you ever think about bringing like Frankie, do you ever think about bringing on someone from like the singer from Mold?
I've actually
I
talked
know
about
that
that with Antonio. He's
he's got
actually
a
really
really cool
down.
voice. I love his voice.
Yeah, he's actually really
Hmm.
down, and he's actually a really good producer too.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it just happens when you're involved with multiple projects. I feel like you're hanging out sometimes, but other times you're like, did you know that wouldn't work? I like having beers with you, but I don't want to make a song.
Right, 100%. We're super down with features and experiment. The last record had a bunch of people, obviously, like recorded voice, like Juanchi, fucking Danny played percussion, fucking like it was very like homegrown in that way. Like it's just like our friends. Like Malonota was very much that. Like there's probably like 20 people on that record, like
Yeah,
but for physics it felt because that was like so maximalist. Physics felt like a reduction in a lot of ways, like it is shorter, it's more compact, and I wanted it to be just us in a way. Like, not that
that makes
it wasn't
sense.
like explicitly like, oh, we can't have any features, but it didn't end up having any, not that I can think of.
It makes
I don't think
sense
there's a,
that you'd want that though, because like especially if you're dealing with the complications of a lineup change and you are feeling confident, like now that Santi is like chopping the stuff up too,
Mhm.
you want to like hone in on like your statement. I think so. That's smart.
Yeah.
Even if that
But
was kind
that's not to say that we're not closed off to it at all. Like I think collaboration is the great joy of art is getting to fucking hang out, getting to talk, getting to share ideas, talk about the big fucking shit, like with people that you like, and that are talented. I think that's like a one of the great joys of making art, for me. Like I love that, So it will happen. It will happen.
what are not to like I not to completely just left turn, but I just looked down and I was like, oh, you didn't even ask anything like this. So we've talked a lot about like the bands that you guys have played with. What are some of the bands that you guys have seen or maybe experienced just like listening to for the first time in the last couple of years that surprised you? Not necessarily even influenced you. It could have been like recently. Like I'd be a little
Mm,
weirded out if someone was like Chapel Roan, please don't. But
sure.
I did see that there's a I saw such a funny reel of you, Tony, the other day when you woke up to Padam from Kylie
Yeah, dude.
Minogue, dude. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, dude. Uh, yeah, I feel like in the van it gets crazy. You anything goes kind of musically. Like one of my favorite records to drive to is like this live Sade record that Juanchi showed me. It's Lovers, like by Sade, but live, and it's
Really?
just fucking amazing. But I've been listening to. this band from Australia, Tropical Fuckstorm, a lot in the last 2 years. There's been a huge influence. I've been listening to this band from the UK called Gilla Band. They used to be girl band, very noisy, very like fucking harsh, like strange music.
Yeah.
I would say those are my two top contenders for the things that have been fucking greasing my gears. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think it's cool that Santi mentioned the Cloud Chaser show earlier because I thought that was also a really cool show that we went to this year. I kind of had almost forgotten about it. One of my favorite shows that I went to this year was seeing Idols. I was
Oh,
honestly blown away by them. It was my favorite, my best show this year. I don't know if it'll be topped by Animals as Leaders next weekend, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
you've seen them
But
before, though, right? You've seen Animals as Leaders a couple times now.
yeah, but not like in the headliner kind of.
Oh yeah, I mean
Yeah.
they have changed a lot with their production. That should be really cool to see.
So yeah, I'm very excited for that. And then just like in general, Santi and I have just been listening to a lot of drum and bass. We have this collaborative playlist on Spotify, and we have like a bunch of different artists there that or
That's
different songs that are really cool.
I would love to could you both of you guys name like just a couple of drum and bass artists that you're stimulated by these days? I'm getting, what really surprised me is my dad is getting into drum and bass after having damn near a decade obsession with fucking Rammstein.
Wow.
I need this.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
need this.
Yeah. What a
So
pivot.
Yeah,
What a
I'll put
cool
our
pivot.
playlist in the chat. There's
cool.
our
There's
DMB playlist.
That is a fire drum and bass playlist, I will say. Like, Frank, you would like when we were on tour with Chew, like you'd always have the house people like play the playlist. So it was just like drum and bass for like 4 hours, dude. And it was just a vibe. I don't know.
People would vibe
uh
to it.
It was a vibe.
there-
They got
there's
lots of compliments on it.
Yeah, it's
there's
gonna
there's
be
a
our setup music
couple.
for the tour. Like I'll ask the sound guy to put it while we're setting up and stuff.
Yeah, there's a couple artists. I mean, I've been on this drum and bass phase since college. I
Okay.
guess I started really merging into it just because of the glorious YouTube algo. But what I was gonna say, well, some of the artists I've been meddling with 90s drum and bass, right? So it's like very repetitive, 7-minute songs, long songs. And some of the artists I could say Voyager, I have them right here, Johnny L, Intensity, The Chameleon. But you also have more contemporary artists, right? Sega Sound System,
Okay, yeah.
right? Machine Girl. Yeah,
I
there's
saw
just
Machine
so
Girl
many.
live. Machine Girl
Oh
is
my
fucking good.
goodness.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
I saw
goodness.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw that you did. I was jealous. They look
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Dude, that was fucking sick. That was fucking sick. That was a good show.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
Oh,
So
another very good artist is called Total Science.
total
Another,
science.
oh my god.
Yeah.
Is
Also,
that the this is very exciting.
That
no.
yes,
There's
yes. That's the one,
also
Frankie.
Tokyo Pill is also a good one.
I love
So
Tokyo Bill.
yeah.
I was thinking that like last night I was driving home from the movie thing and Tokyo Bill came on one of the playlists I have and I was just like, fuck, yes. And I needed to like, oh man, that was fucking awesome. And there was, it's one that I know it's a I should try to look it up before I even say it, but I know that their former artist name was Sewer Slut. I
Oh
was
yeah,
into
yeah. I've heard yours like yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they have a different artist name now. I think they had like a pretty big identity shift, but that was on the same playlist that I made a while ago. It was kind of like I was getting into health's like aesthetic, but I wasn't
Hmm.
there's something about health that it's like I can listen to a few songs, but I can't like consistently get into it. I think if I lived closer to LA or if I was like maybe like truly a part of the SNM scene. Maybe if I was a sex gimp, I'd get
Uh-huh.
super into it.
Yeah. It's
But
appropriate that they cover Deftones, I feel. It's like yeah, passing the torch like a horny bands like continue.
yeah,
Yeah.
here's the horny torch.
Yeah.
Uh, have you guys seen Deftones live, by the way?
Never seen Deftones live.
Deftones is the one band that hit well. not quite, but they touched the brown note for me.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
I was like 2 rows from the front, and they opened up with their at the time it was their new single Rocket Skates.
Oh,
Uh, so the intro is about 2 seconds long before it
right.
goes really crazy. And
Yeah.
so
Like,
it's the faster one. It's the it's just like the da 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 da.
yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
I so like my friend Emily and I look at each other and we're both like, oh no, right before they're about to, and the lights come on and like the bass drop thing that it's not in the record, but of course, right when the lights go on, the flames and all that, I just remember like, I think I'm gonna shit my pants. And this is the first song. I did it. But like it took all of my might to be struggling through it. So like the mosh pits and like, it's not just a normal mosh pit, but like, kind of like the semi orgiastic Deftone.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Holding a shit in his heart.
That's rough. No, that's good on you for keeping it
uh,
together. That's I don't know if I would have made it.
and Mastodon and Alice in Chains were the other bands.
God damn.
Mm.
What a lineup.
Held it in for a long time.
What a
Yeah.
lineup. Never
But
seen Deftones. I would love to see Deftones. That's a band that we always would get kind of compared to. I think probably has a lot to do with the guitar aesthetic of our music and kind of like Frankie's kind of like hip hop pocket that he kind of does sometimes. We would get compared like Juanchi was the one that's like, dude, I never listened to them. Like I was never like a Deftones guy, you know.
Same.
But Juanchi's like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? Like you need to listen to this shit. And like I kind of do kind of see what people meant, like the use of delay, the fucking baritone guitars, the kind of
interesting.
like airy kind of thing. But it's not a band that I got into until probably 2 years ago, honestly.
I never would have made that connection, but I think hearing what you're saying now, and in terms of like the more recent output, the stuff that I've heard from the new album,
Yeah,
that makes sense a little more, especially if you compare it to like stuff on Around the Fur, I
sure.
guess. Some of the
I don't know.
more
It was something that people had said throughout the years that I was like, okay, like I don't get it. I don't see what you mean. But I think it was
I
like a weird
yeah,
kind of like light bulb moment. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
I will
Like lots
say
of like major seven chords and shit, like I don't
that
know.
can be a component too. Deftones, this is going to sound weird, but like also if someone's like familiar with like West Coast rock from the 2000s, I feel like Deftones is one of those bands that someone might blanket you with without like, maybe they actually did not hear your band play and they're like, oh, you guys had kind of like a
Deftones thing.
Deftones
That
thing.
sounds bad.
I'm
It's
like, oh yeah, thank you.
lands in enough places that
Yeah,
I'm
just
not saying
works.
she did because it works for you guys, but like I remember I played in like a surf band, a surf pop punk thing. In no way did it represent anything, from that era. But one time, because someone was a friend of a member of the band after the set, they were like, you guys sounded kind of like Deftones and Incubus. And I was like, the fuck we did? What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
That's also
Uh,
another band that people have compared us to. The early days were like, so yeah, you ever listen to Incubus? I'm like, no. Like,
I'm not
not that I have
saying
a
they're
problem with it.
wrong, but those can
Yeah,
be bigger blanket stations
sure,
that might not mean quite as much. But
sure.
the
But I
Deftones
think
one,
it's also interesting when it's not something that you listen to, or like something that's not directly not an influence, but is like somehow aesthetically like at least tracks to that random person that like they saw that in you. Of course, all music is through the fucking lens of the person's
it's true.
experiences and what they like. Like they'll like art in a way is a lot about projection. So I feel like it
It's
makes
true.
sense.
I shouldn't be
Just like
so
when people
hard
say
on
that your band sounds like the Mars Volta like every day.
that. Must be difficult. I mean, do you struggle with that?
No, it's fucking hilarious to me, but it happens, dude. Like, and I can sense it when it's gonna happen. Like, someone coming up to me is like, hey man, you guys sounded really good, dude. You guys really good. You guys
Here,
kind of remind me
here,
of that. I'm like, just stop
here,
there. I know what
here
you're gonna say.
comes. Here comes.
I know what you're gonna say. I love you and I forgive you. Yes,
They like
the
start
Mars
doing
Volta.
the dances and all. Um, I I love those guys no matter what happens. But yeah, I could see that being in pain. I remember also thinking, I don't know if you guys have met the dudes in Closure in Moscow.
No, but I'm a fan. I fucking love that band.
Okay,
I know they're doing a thing with Fall, Troy, and Hale in
that
Australia.
makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
those are all that's a good tour.
that's
But
gonna be
they
epic.
get that a lot as well. The Mars Volta comparisons to their like a lot of their older stuff. And I remember being like, you guys are missing out if that's what you think is happening. But
For sure. I feel they're so their own thing. They're so their own thing. I feel like it's a very like very just like safe blanket thing. Like the Deftones thing you're describing, I feel like if you're a weird band like Mars Volta, it's like kind of a safe bet that you got into them at some point, you know. Like
that's true. I
I love
honestly
Mars
I
Volta.
just got back into them like a few days ago after a couple of years of being bitter about the new one. I was
Uh
like, I'm not listening to these guys anymore. And then that's like my own just like compressed thing about that album. But like I think it's Francis the Mute, and I just like
you didn't fuck with the new record?
no, I mean it's not that I didn't like it. It was just like I've as a fan of Omar's solo stuff, I saw a very logical connection to that whole progression and did not understand the Mars Volta logo on it.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
and I will like bite my tongue more beyond that, but like I know that everyone that I know that has experienced them live since then has been like they are better than ever, and I'm just like keep that energy coming. I am not going to hold my breath for like John Theodore to come back. I'm not gonna. I don't even know like have it anyway.
I
It's
think I
just a
saw
different.
them on an off night, I will say.
Oh
I saw
really?
them in Atlanta at the Tabernacle. I was there with Danny. We got free tickets at the end of our tour. Like, just a friend had like three extra tickets,
Oh
and
wow.
it was in Atlanta. And like we had just ended a tour in Savannah, and it was just like kind of serendipitous. And we fucking pulled up, and we saw them at this epic venue in Atlanta called the Tabernacle. And yeah, I think it was an off night. Omar was like visibly pissed, like fucking taking out his in-ears, like fucking screaming at some guy side stage, like fucking guitar, like fucked up. Like it was just like a weird energy. I did get to see them with Eva, the bass player, who played on the
Oh no
first.
way.
Yeah, yeah. Like she only did like half that tour. She like plays with Pink, you know, like she tours with Pink.
Okay.
Um, so I got this. That was fucking epic. Like the rhythm section was fucking giving it everything. It was fucking dope.
I bet.
But like I'm not trying to talk shit. I love the Mars Volta. They were the first band I ever saw live, actually, opening up for System of a Down.
I think we've talked about how yeah, with
I have a lot of love for that band.
who was the other
But
band in that show? Was it Bad Acid Trip?
I don't remember. I was
Okay.
in fourth grade.
Yeah, so it's like I think I know the tour because I know
It's
my
like
one of my best friends
2004.
as well. Yeah.
2004. Um yeah, but they have a strange kind of like mystical dark energy, them too. You know, like Cedric and Omar, you know, like they have the fucking thing, but it's a strange energy to contend with, and I don't know. It
Yeah.
was interesting, but I think it was an off night.
I believe it. Don't worry. I can cut the shit talk session out.
No, no, no. Make sure that it's featured like fucking Antonio from Pavlov'S
Oswald
and Zeta talking mad shit about Cedric and Omar.
denounces Mars Volta.
Love Jim Ward, you know, loves Jim
Oh my
Ward.
god. That's so um the whole like Francis the Mute album like makes me just like there's moments on that I could just cry and be like, oh, I can't believe humans made this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just not how I feel since then.
What a
But
beautiful record. I was walking to that whole record the other day and I remembered how much I love that song, Miranda, that ghost just isn't that holy. Um,
it
I
takes
like
way
it's
too
like
long to start.
4 minutes, 4 minutes of just like ambient noise before the track starts. And it's just like it that there were such like I feel like there's such an analog there with like the spirit of like a band like almost like Pink Floyd or King
Yeah,
Crimson, like in that
absolutely.
way. And obviously with Storm Thurgerson doing the album art, like I feel like they kind of like embodied that in a way.
That's such a cool
Like
connection.
yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's literally as epic as it gets. Like Storm Thurgerson for me is like a huge inspiration in why I even do graphic or like I love album art. It's a big passion of mine. I think his work with hypnosis and shit. It's like that shit is the physical manifestation of sound. You know, like it's just incredible how it can transcend and such a memorable link between the sound and the visual identity because like
Mhm.
that's really the only visual context you get from music outside of like a music video. You know, it's like the presentation of it is like the context to take you on where the sound is trying to get you, I guess, you know.
You guys should do
Anyway,
a
I'm
cover
fucking
album
tangent.
of
That
the what is the first one? Not
D-Louse in the
yeah,
Comatorium.
but you should have this instead of that weird golden head.
Actually, it's right here.
Hell yeah, you've got it. You have the three pneumo. That's so cool.
Yeah, my dad made these.
I was gonna ask, do you have like a ton of those lying around though? Because that is the case, or does your dad have like a house full of those skulls?
My dad, we made these in for the record. Like, I'll show you this one. I'm like just playing aside because there's a bunch of shit on it. But this one is the most indicative. Let me put my guitar down. This one I think is probably the most meaningful one.
It's still plugged in.
Yeah, it is. And I think it'll be pretty obvious why, but it's like the
Oh,
three,
right
you know,
on.
it's like, you know,
That's
the three heads together, you
and
know,
that's
like
like in your merch too, right? Or like that's like isn't that used in a couple places in the
it's an
imagery art?
album. It's Malanota Live uses that
Right.
one.
Okay, that's
The single for Monte Culebra uses the other one. Definitely like existential. But the skeleton is such a beautiful metaphor because it's what we all are on the inside, you know, like our appearance is different, but fundamentally we're the same, you know, and I think with that sculpture it was like trying to embody like three heads coming together, but like just in like a very like the most humble way, I guess, you know, it's like fucking
that's so
bear,
interesting.
you know. So,
Yeah, and I
you
mean
know.
that has its own connotations like to the like the functioning pieces of the band too, right? You know, like yeah, it's kind of like a philosophical, three magic number situation too, but that's a very cool representation of like the band and like the again, not to like try to make everything about this, but again, maybe part of just like what makes you guys' work ethic and like effectiveness so real is like the fact that you guys remember you're just skeletons underneath, whereas some people
Hmm.
really struggle with that concept and like really invest in their ego. But yeah, I just appreciate how like down to earth you guys are because it helps solidify again the roots to the things that I really care about in music. Like I could love a record for its sound, but for like Santi, you were making the argument earlier about like separating the art from the artist. Like sometimes it does feel really good not to, when they're not a
Yeah.
piece of shit making the record. I shouldn't say that as someone who is friends with a band called the Pieces of Shit and literally featured on a record as a piece of shit. Um, but um, I yeah, it's good to have a connect with you guys and like enjoy the music and also know that you guys are like so real about your skeletons as well,
Bro,
which some people
we
just don't.
fucking love talking to you, man. Like, we love what you do. I think it's super
Yeah.
important. I think, um, what Fecking Bahamas does harkens back to something that's very fundamental to like how I discovered music, which is like blogs or like fucking, you know, just like people talking about the shit, super passionately about shit that I wouldn't have heard otherwise, maybe, you know? I think it's super important. And I think that like at this point you guys are kind of like the premier in that, in my opinion. Like I feel like kind of like the default kind of mouthpiece for strange
Yeah. You're putting
off
together a
kilter
show
shit,
in,
you
in
know?
Japan recently, or Is that coming up soon?
Yes, Fecking Bahamas is also, yeah, thank you, Tony. I appreciate all of that. The we are doing a Japan thing. The story
Hmm.
behind Bahamas Fest has always been one of the two creators of Fecking Bahamas, not Nick Hunter, the founder, but his like roommate and assistant, from what I understand, to talk. Uh, oh man, I can't remember his last name. Yamamoto. They used to organize Bahamas Fest a little more easily as a Japanese music fest, just together on their own accord, bands they had covered, people that Tak knew in Japan. And I think the last one was in like 2016, 2017. But that was like a couple years after the blog had started. Not really sure what was happening in the meantime, other than like, we were just continuing to grow as a blog, but the festival wasn't happening for whatever reasons. And I think it was a couple of years ago now, there was not a Bahamas Fest, but sort of a riff on that with a couple of our contributors in Mexico. They did that show in Mexico City,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't Bahamas Fest, but I wasn't part of that. And it's the same situation with Bahamas Fest again, where it's the original co-creator had all those people just like as acquaintances in all those cool bands.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, it's a cool lineup. Light and like
it's
Locto, I
crazy,
think.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I didn't expect. I don't remember if lights on there. I have a picture here somewhere, but whatever the lineup is, I just remember being like, I can't believe that this happened so quickly. That it sold out within like an hour, and then the next time they announced tickets, it sold out within an hour, and the next time they did it, it sold out within an hour. So TAC has like a really big hold on this small community in Japan,
Okay.
and I don't really even know what to say other than be like, wow, amazing job, Tack. Thanks for throwing that together. And
You guys gotta do a cruise, man. You guys gotta go to the actual fucking Bahamas, dude, and fucking pull up and fucking.
I mean, pipe dream,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. That what I think
2025, 2026.
maybe 2030. I'm thinking that we need to do a couple of US things and see what happens.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't
you
know
definitely
how it
should.
went. I have had a
I
couple
feel like
people
with
say,
all the people that you guys have in your network of bands, like it will be epic. Like you guys gotta fucking do
it
something.
it does sound like that, but as someone who's like, honestly, like really just put on like the professional appearance, but like honestly tried to be as amateur as possible about this whole thing in terms of like I have my own life, I have all these other
Yeah.
things that I want to do. It's a big investment of time and energy. So this year I am going to see what it takes just to be a little more professional. I'm going to try to do merch officially. I prototyped a couple things this
Oh,
year.
cool, cool,
Uh,
man.
uh, just like super basic t-shirts, just want that to be able to, if the t-shirts do okay, then, and I'll have a good idea of like where they sell to, like maybe it'd be better to do a fest in Chicago,
Mm,
maybe not, maybe in Texas, but who knows how that would work out.
yeah.
Or, if it goes really well, maybe we could do like a couple different things, like, one, two, three, or whatever. But that would be so cool to do
I
because I
think that's
want
smart. Like a pop-up almost, like a pop-up kind of like smaller scale festival, kind of like the Kill Iconic shit that Donovan does. It's like they're like it's basically like a show plus. You know, it's like hella bands, but it's in spaces that can actually accommodate those bands, but it's still
oh,
like very accessible, very much like going just to a show. I feel like it doesn't have the same kind of like, oh, it's fucking Coachella or something like that. It's like a
yeah,
pop-up festival, you know? It's interesting. It's a good business model, I think. I think it
we'll
works.
see what happens. And like honestly, I might move to Eugene or somewhere in Oregon this year, go back to at
Okay.
least,
You think you're gonna go back?
I don't know. It's really expensive here in,
Really? More than Eugene and fucking Portland? And
so yes, here in St. George, this two-bedroom is like 2,100 a month, and
okay.
even split between me and my spouse, it's a lot of expenses.
Hmm.
uh and in Eugene, there's a lot more options in Crestwell, just that surrounding area in Oregon. It can get, down closer to like half that.
Wow.
And I'm not saying that it's an amazing area, to be
Sure.
honest. Like I have a lot of reservations about going back to such a depressing shithole.
Hmm.
But it is a place that is like home also.
Yeah.
But like
You guys moved to Utah, if I'm not mistaken, because of your spouse's work or something like that, right? Something like that.
we moved here so I could work on that documentary
Right,
essentially.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Um, but my spouse also was working or like sort of was having this mental health vision quest situation that lined up perfectly with coming out here. So we're like,
Sure.
let's pull the trigger. And yeah, so fuck. It's hard to talk about the documentary situation, but we're taking like all the existing assets that we still have and like converting it into a book.
Oh,
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, it was picked up by Paramount in pre-production after it got connected to Luis Elizondo, who
hmm,
is like the UFO expert you'll see on 60 Minutes and other things. If you ever look into UAP or UFO shit, he's there.
hmm,
But when we started working with him, everything got like jammed up, and I'm pretty sure it was on purpose. So like the
hmm.
book is a report of not just our situation like that, but there's actually a lot of projects that were in our shoes, like loosely connected to the stars, loosely connected to the stuff and the people with that from Tom DeLonge and Blink 182
Right,
and all that.
right, right. Yeah,
And so everyone's like very excited, everyone gets maximum energy. Everyone moves from their hometown to fucking do
right.
the thing, right? And everyone gets frozen at about the same time, at about the same step in the process. And
Hmm.
then but yeah, ultimately, what we're trying to do now is take those resources that we still have or that we gathered ourselves by visiting the reservations and doing all the research and putting together the screenplays and whatnot. And Reese and I, the other writer, are uh, trying to make this book experience is relatively easy to digest, where
Hmm.
it starts with like my UFO experience and then goes into being a musician because I did not want anything to do with what I think had just happened.
Yeah.
And it's flash forward to the pandemic where I'm like, well, we were literally just about to do 4 dates with Zeta and they all got canceled. And I don't think I'm ever going to tour again. Should we move back home? So and then it just kind of lined up like that. And then my friend was like, well, we are working on a documentary. I'm out here on the reservations in Arizona working on water filtration tech. They were prototyping stuff to do their best to help the indigenous people there, but
Hmm.
the pandemic has done a number on like the way they perform rituals. They can't really be close to each other and conduct
Right.
those like oral ceremonies the same way. Or if they do, it's just like it's really a different thing now. So
Wow.
slowed down pretty crazy. But
I did
also,
not know this lore. Also, like,
oh,
Wow.
I
Yeah.
feel like this the Michael lore. I would love probably another time, but I would love to hear this account of your story because
oh,
I want to believe. I think it's just a matter of statistics that there's some shit out there, but I am
yeah,
fascinated, especially in that part of the country. Like energetically, it's so wild, the desert. Like I feel like Arizona, New Mexico, all that shit. I remember playing in Taos.
oh,
Frankie, you
really?
were there. You
Yeah,
remember?
yeah, I was there.
And like we had a like running bit that was like, okay, we have to come up with some sort of code word in case a skinwalker like fucking Shane grabs one of us and changes us. And it's like, okay, what's your five favorite time signature? And we're like 5-4. It's like, and it was just like our thing. It's like, what's your favorite time signature? Someone said 3-4, throw him out of the band, dude.
Oh my god,
4-4, toss him out, dude. Leave him on the side, dude. This is a skinwalker right here, dude.
that is
Um,
scary.
Energetically so loaded, that part of the country, I feel.
Yeah, it is.
It makes your mind wander. Oregon too, like Pacific Northwest, but it's like it's like whimsy. Like I feel like you look at a forest in
Shrouded.
Oregon and it's like there's definitely like little elves in there. There's like little guys in there, you know, like there's like little guys living under a mushroom, you know, like that.
Much
It's more
different,
whimsical, you know,
way
but
more restricted population. Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, I digress. I
Or
would love to hear that
Oregon is
someday.
cool in terms of that stuff. I mean, I would say not to be like a paranoid dude, I would totally I would do it if you guys end the recording and then I would
Oh, sure.
totally
Yeah.
Oh
um
Go ahead.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man.
All right, any last anything? Should we? Yeah.
um no, I can edit it so it looks like
Okay.
all that never happened.
All right. Great. All right.
Yeah, a lot of the interviews these days just like I cut off at a certain point, so it looks like maybe there was never a goodbye. We're still talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's
But you
cool.
know, it's not because I want to. A, because I'm lazy. B, it's just like an aesthetic thing now, where
Yeah.
I'm.
Well, at this point, it's like we've been talking for like 2 hours, so
Yeah,
you
yeah.
got your work cut out for you in that
I'm gonna go
respect.
ahead and end it right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
yeah.
just
And
I just
Yeah.
wanted to say I just wanted to say that I'm very grateful for the interview and for this time that we're sharing.
me too, man.
Yeah,
I
me
Very
really
too.
well.
appreciate it. It's great to meet you, also, Santi. I'm about
Very
to
yeah,
ruin your impression.
absolutely. Very nice to meet you. It's been a pleasure.
Well, we'll get ready to take all that back. Yeah, let's see.
Did
Um,
I? Oh, there you go, recording.